Welcome to the Louchen Bros podcast. This show is hosted by Brian Louchen.
And I am Kevin Louchen.
And we are bros who talk about nerd stuff.
On today's episode, we got a fun one. Recently released on out to Prime Video platforms. That's what I was going for, platforms. We have the movie Project Hail Mary. To sum it up, it's a movie where a guy wakes up from a induced slumber. He's on a spaceship, and he figures out in the process, as he's trying to regain his memory, that he's very far from home, and he's there because he's trying to help save Earth from these tiny microorganisms called astrophages. They are eating essentially the sun. That's basically what it is in simple terms. In the process, he meets an alien. He befriends him, and they together kind of figure out a way to save the planets that are being, because it's not just Earth. There are other planets in the solar system that are being affected by these astrophages. So that is the kind of story, kind of summed up as far as that goes. And just right off the bat, I was interested, and I was very happy with the movie.
Yeah, I was super happy with the movie. Very believable story. You know, they talk about the Petrova line, where you have the infrared light stretching from the sun to Venus, is the substance in the line dubbed astrophage, as Kevin mentioned. You know, that was basically a surviving predator that would basically keep alive, and they were going to explore that to try to get samples on how it could basically beat the destruction of the entire universe, essentially.
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing outside of, some of the science and the story itself, they were very impressive and intriguing. But as far as the film goes, the art aspect of it, being able to make the tone of this movie the way they did and combined all sorts of forms of it was phenomenal. I think they had one of the best balances of comedy, of sadness, of seriousness, of sort of adventure, fear, anxiety, just overall feel good. I was like dumbfounded how good it was that they were able to balance it so well. And that is one of the most impressive aspects as far as, the film as an art goes, that I was enamored with. It was absolutely wonderful to experience sort of a roller coaster of emotions, and done in such a great way that it just flowed so well, so good. I loved it.
You know who directed the movie, right?
No, I don't remember.
Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who did the Lego movie.
Okay, not totally surprising.
Yeah, and I was I have the same feelings, like, it's one of those moments, I'm not crying, you're crying, or I have something in my eye, because it definitely hits all the emotions that Kevin already described, like, and that, and like, even Kevin was talking about the comedy movie, like, all the punchlines hit. Like,
they were good.
They
were
hit.
So good.
And like, again, Kevin talked about the alien creature that they kind of come across, and, you're going to have movies that are the horror side of it, but then you're going to have a more intrigued, curious, and some of those traits where it's like, if this actually happened, this is a reality as far as that, and they just did it so well, and it was so balanced with all the different emotions, and even on top of it, the music, which we'll talk about later, hits the point as well, as far as not even the writing aspect or the editing aspect, but setting the tone with the music was so dramatic as well.
You, like, the seriousness of real life is the fear factor, right? Like that is the villain, that is the slasher in this of what reality could be, is just overall death, and not just of you, of everything. Like that's a real villain at times, and they, even though this is a fictional story, that it was phenomenally done in that way. And I think so. Just as we talked about, the tone was absolutely fabulous. But it's not. It wasn't just that. That was a great element, and it wasn't just that element. I thought the story and how they told the story. Maybe it was. This might be a little bit of my interpretation, but this is my interpretation. What they did is they balanced a sort of talking about the current time point where you're following Grace, Ryan Gosling's character, and in real time. But there's these constant past elements. To me, I was in my head treating them like memories, because he at first he doesn't have his full cognizance coming out of this long delayed cyber sleep slumber thing, but he comes out of it, and in the process of it, he's that was funny itself, because he's trying to remember things, and he didn't know how to do things, and even his movements were funny. But in the process of that, I think he's still, even though he remembers like his current scenario, I think he was still gaining some of his memories. So when the story is being told, I feel like he's remembering those in an order. It is chronological, but it's an order of how he even got there. And to me, I'm thinking of that literally happening to him, and they do it in such a timely manner that you, oh my God, it was awesome. Because you learn so much about him as a character, and from what he was to even what he became, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah, and I don't know if that necessarily, the flashback scenes, if you want to learn about a movie that does flashback scenes done right, this movie, I think, nails it. And I don't know if that's the editing or the story and the script, or a little bit of both, probably. But yeah, the flashback scenes, they definitely hit on for sure. I mean, and this is the type of movie where you really go on an emotional roller coaster and experience all those different emotions in a good way. I mean, there's even dark parts of the movie where this is, you're the only one that can kind of do this type of thing, and basically they capture him with a tranquilizer and basically put him into fucking hyperspace. You know what I mean? That's a dark part of the movie. There's him and the alien creature almost dying, or again pseudo dying, basically, and helping each other, which again, that's very sad and dramatic and stuff like that. And then there's your feel good parts in the movie where you're like, they just figured shit out, and it's like, we're not gonna die. Or there was just so much to this movie, and there's a lot of classic sci-fi tropes out there with The Martian and Apollo 13 and a lot of these movies in sci-fi, in space and stuff like that. So even this movie takes parts of that, from the different movies, but even then it was still put together so well. Man, it was such a good movie. From the cinematic aspects, as we're describing, phenomenal. But I actually want to go and kind of follow the story itself a little bit too. Yeah, let's do it. As we presented itself, oh my God, like I was not only impressed, taken aback, and almost, speechless, because like it was just done cinematically so well. But the story itself is awesome. I mean, because like I said, it's going to go bounce back and forth, but like he essentially is an exiled scientist, and I thought that was a cool element. His take was phenomenal, and like he's trying to get back into it by being essentially an expendable agent by the government, and he learns that he was wrong, and that was hilarious. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do a kind of a loose plot line, which I'm sure Kevin's going to dive a lot deeper into all of this, essentially it was not their first choice, but again, the person who Petrova, the scientist, knew like he was the guy to kind of figure shit out. He basically, like I said, he gets essentially knocked out with tranquilizer, put in a coma, and put with these other like pilot and what was the other one? He was the scientist, the pilot, and I think it was an engineer. And basically, he gets thrown out into space. They fucking die. He survives, and then he's in the middle. Just imagine you're in the fucking middle of the universe, waking up out of coma, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Then you eventually come across an alien ship, and then realize, like, okay, we need to solve, and you befriend this fucking alien because you don't want to talk to yourself anymore. You think you're going crazy, and then trying to find a way back to cure the fucking universe, and then see if you can make it back home. It was a fucking roller coaster.
It's pretty amazing that how he got to where he is, because as a character, he's very timid, he's very passive, like he wants to be great. That's why he was one of the few people that stood against that professor that said he was lying and he was wrong. But then he proved himself wrong, and he kind of owned it in the moment in that tunnel. And then she's like, well, okay, we'll let you know the answer. And then he's like, well, wait, you can't just leave me. And he ends up becoming essentially the foremost scientist on this topic, which is amazing, because it's like, scientists are wrong all the time. They don't want to be. That coming from a science background, the goal isn't always to you want to be accurate with the information, but that doesn't always marry up to what you think. Sometimes you have to have a hypothesis of what you're going about, but sometimes you prove yourself wrong. And what he learned with this from dealing with essentially a creature from space is he was wrong, and like you could tell he's owning it very hard in that tunnel. But then he's like, okay, well, that doesn't mean he doesn't know anything. It just means his idea was wrong, and he goes in a direction with new information. That's what science is. Science right now is what we know it as, right? So he's following that, and then he gets himself past it, and you kind of just go back and forth, and he's the foremost frontier person. And then they basically, what you learn is everyone kind of died that was supposed to be in the plan, and that's why he is the plan because of that. But it's the character development path you see. And then when he's on the ship, like he's a smart person, and he uses that ability to interact with an alien life form. And I love it how there's even a point where they talk about, he sees this other life form that they're clearly smart. They have a spaceship, but at the same time, he's like, they don't understand and know certain things that we do. Like, they don't have the computer technology that he does, where he creates a way to communicate between the two. He understands they're using sound. It doesn't really get into a lot of detail wise, but so I thought that was a cool aspect where they created a mode of communication. Like, just stuff like that played in so well. It did so well. Let me back up one sec. But then the funerals. How'd you feel about the funerals? Where he kind of airlifted the people as he was learning the memories, and he's like, oh yeah, I remember these people, and he kind of sent them off in space.
Actually, before I talk about the funerals, I just wanted to kind of jump back as far as you talking about the character.
It's okay.
It is. So with Ryan Gosling's character, I feel this movie is very relatable. Like we said, we were talking about a lot of the emotions, but I feel like it's a lot of relatable because in the beginning of the movie, he doesn't want to go because he knows there's a very good chance he's going.
But you don't learn that until the end.
Yeah, and he has no confidence. He's deathly scared, and he basically kind of refuses to actually want to go when he's actually the best chance we got. And it's like, I love how they use the classic tropes where you have fucking like a room of 50 scientists that don't know shit, and then one fucking person comes in there and figures it all out, and they're kind of the expert,
But that's the funny thing is everybody else knows like everything, and he's like,
exactly.
It's like thinking outside the box. Yeah. He has a great ability to do that.
Just like, fucking Stargate or whatever. Like, I just love that classic scientist trope. But like, My point is his character arc in the story where he's got like the no confidence and stuff like that, where you basically are changing your prerogative, and he talks about being brave and stuff like that, and like getting that along the actual way, which I feel like, again, it's a relatable thing, because even in your personal story you may go through, you might be scared of things and stuff like that, but again, with the journey of life, you would hope to grow, become a better person, and get some of these actual traits, which again, I think that was an awesome part of like the story arc. But circling back to the you said the character deaths, as far
the funerals,
as funerals, as far as that. That's one of the parts of the movie I don't remember as much, honestly, as far as with the funerals. But you're talking about with the
airlifting them out, the airlock, the two other astronauts.
So
part.
So this part is where he's waking up from slumber, and he obviously has the deaths of obviously the engineer and the pilot, and he basically brings him out to does a little prayer, and then basically sends him out the actual airlock. I think that was just like a sign of like respect type of thing, in my opinion.
I agree, but I don't. I think it was monumentous, if that's the word, because of what it meant in the moment. It was a real moment of like, I think at that point is where if he hadn't been showing it now, that's where his memories were really starting to be a lot more intact. But I also think it was super important because this is where there's that human element where he's really still paying respect to people he essentially doesn't even know.
And that's when he was going through all their stuff and seeing all the pictures and stuff.
And learning who he is.
Yeah, connecting the dots.
But it's also a point of which I think as a character, this is the point of no return. You've come to terms, you've gained enough memory to know this is it. You have no other choice. You're here and that's it. And it's like, well, you can still do an amazing thing, or you can just wallow in your own pity. And even though he didn't remember how he got there, I think he knew why he was there. And I think that's where his character just, you know what? Let's do this. You could see even going forward, he was so like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. But that's life. I have no idea what I'm doing as an adult every day. And yet I managed to try to do things as best as I can because, look, you got to live life. And I think that's him trying to just live life and do the best what he can. And I think that is, to me, a point of where, obviously, the emotional sadness of what was happening is, like I said, he didn't know these people, not really. And yet, even with the memory loss, he knew them less in a sense. But it's the way of just being respectful, but also change and like, okay, shit's getting real now. And I think that was that moment where you start seeing his character start pushing a direction of trying to make the difference for not just him, essentially for the human race, which he could have just gave up and just done nothing. But that's why I feel like it was an amazing part.
Yeah, and like as far as the living life, they had the VR room where there was the beach and the mountains and stuff like that, and he was kind of like enjoying those little moments as far as living life. But he's like, okay, now I need to fucking get to work, because eventually the food's gonna run out and shit like that. So I did enjoy seeing kind of that aspect, and then later on as he was showing Rocky, as far as those experiences on Earth, as far as those different, terrains and stuff like that, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I think the next big jump is when you see him and his ship. I do believe his ship was, what was it called again? It was the Arclight. Is that what the ship was?
No,
that was the
Hail Mary.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's Hail Mary. The
actually,
Arclight is from the Petrova Light. That's right.
Do you know they made a Lego freaking of this?
No, but that's fucking cool.
I was like, damn, rewatchability. They made a fucking Lego set from this shit. Which awesome.
So I'm sorry, I mixed up some of my notes.
Okay.
Yes. So the next biggest part is him meeting the ship, which I think they were calling Blip A, and it's throwing the cans, the canister or whatever, and he meets this other life form, and he attempts to really interact and conversate. And if this isn't the basic human nature, maybe because we're American, but also the element of running into people you have no idea how to communicate with. This is a whole other level, right? Like this is the epitome of that. And just trying to, as they say, break bread and increase interactions and all this other stuff. It was very intriguing, and I think one of the coolest parts was how they developed the means to communicate him with the computer system, but also Rocky being able to see and do that thing with the sound equivalent transmitter thing. I don't know the names of these devices, but I'm aware of things being provided to that, which goes into basic biology. There's a science portion I already told Brian about. We will talk about a little bit later. As far as some of the real and unreal things, but just some tidbits. But I love that way because that is an elemental form of human nature is communication. Some people can communicate without talking. It's just literally noises, body language, and other things, and you can have a sort of conversation. You can look at physical features, sloped or slumped, body language. I love, like, this is such a rudimentary kind of concept, but it's such a good concept for two different species trying to, like, are you friend or foe? We don't know. I love that element about this.
Yeah, and like you said, he uses a computer to leverage the sound, the echolocation, and that sort of thing, and comes up with 250 words or 600 words, and they kind of can start having these conversations and learning about each other and how to kind of ultimately fix this problem, because you learn that Rocky's planet, and he lost a crew of 23 or something.
Yeah. I think it was a total of 23, or they lost 23. Either way, 20-something organisms.
And he lost his mate, too, which you also find...
No, he didn't lose his mate. Back at home. The mate's back at the home planet.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's who he's missing in this process. Erid. Erid is the planet. Erid. But either way, that interaction and then their just blooming friendship, I thought was just phenomenal to see. What you learn is that their atmospheres are different, which is what I'll go into in a little bit. So, like, basically one would have to be in a suit one way or the other to experience the other. And so Rocky, as he's dubbed name-wise because he looks like a fucking rock with appendages, it ends up going on in this, like, kind of ball. If you ever seen the movie Bubble Boy, or if you've ever seen a fucking gerbil in a fucking ball, that's basically what it looked like.
It was a space hamster ball.
Yeah. So it was kind of comical in that sense, but practical at the same time. And I think a little bit, if there was one thing that was a little off, definitely it was like, okay, he's in this ball and he builds a structure within the Hail Mary, but I don't know how he goes between the ball and that. However, at moments, like towards the one ball, towards the one end in the ball, he looks like he grabs the hacky sack of earth and holds it. So maybe it's almost like he can grab it and pinch it off if it's inside. So if he connects to the structure, maybe he can kind of go through it and then it attaches to other things. Like, it wasn't clear to me how that was happening, but he had like another sleeping structure inside there with the ball itself. So I was a little like, I wasn't sure, but for the most part, by watching the ball get engulfed, I was like, oh, there's got to be some way that he can kind of connect things indirectly. It's like malleable substance that can figure differently to its environment. But
I loved the Rocky based off the movie references that they had for it. I thought that was a lot of fun. I just think the species itself, when you have a lot of these aliens introduced into sci-fi movies, like I said, you always think of a Predator style. So this to me was a unique take on it, where they had a more like a friendly, curious type, but like a rock-based creature, and his eating was disgusting through like his ass or whatever.
I literally made a note of that.
So, but again, I thought it was interesting as far as how they kind of depicted that, because again, I believe there's freaking different alien species out there, and stuff like that. But I just thought it was interesting and unique as far as their choice on that, but I thought it was really cool.
Listen, I will reiterate this. The government has confirmed there are alien species out there. They did it during COVID, so everyone lost track that this actually happened because everyone was so focused on COVID. There is alien life out there. Now, how deep do you want to get into this is up to you. But it's there. It's happened. We got things from from the documents they released. Now, what do you want to make of that? That's on you and how much you want to do there. But I mean, even before that came out, I said, if we, depending on how you were raised and believed and all this other things, coming of a person of a science background, I absolutely believe before that was a possibility to have organic life somewhere else. And I said, why couldn't you? The issue is it feasible, the idea of seeing them? But like I said, that's a science thing, and we don't want to get down that road because even a lot of that is way above my fucking head. So, but the point being is, it was definitely interesting to see this sort of different organic character that was able to interact and be different and show a personality, right? Anytime we see something where we don't know or understand, even a robot, show a personality type, we find that so intriguing, I think, as a viewer, and love that you can do that. It's, what's the word? It's like onomatopoeia, where we give life to inanimate objects. This isn't quite the same thing. I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of my terrible memory. But there is a sense of, things that we don't expect to be a certain way, and we can like or don't like that. I find that so exciting to see. But just the development of a friendship, it to me had the idea of this colonial day period where, obviously in America we had some very bad interactions, but we did obviously have some good ones, and the hope and the thought is that this is the starting blooming interaction between two different species of organisms. So I thought that was great to see. Yes, and then the idea is that they're both solving the same problem, which I thought was the interesting factor, and that I. It's so interesting how every time you see Grace, Ryan Gosling's character, think of a problem, almost every solution seems to be so simple, and Rocky just makes like a fishing lure, and that's all it is. It seems like everything that was so simple, it was there. He just, the idea or the problem seems so astronomical, but in reality, it was super small. Like some of the other things he was doing too. So I loved how the plot was developing. I love how they were developing as friends. I love, even later after the interactions and the fishing and all of that, Rocky saves him, but then even later on, he goes out of his way to save his friend because he knows he's only got two choices. But I feel like it was once again, character thing was like he's already he could send the things and still help them. He's like, I could get back, yeah. But it's also like, as the I don't know if she was a scientist or whatever, but the Ava Strat character that worked for the government, she's like, basically, you have nothing here, but you're trying to help people. And so the one thing you see in his life that he developed outside of the kids he used is he has a friend that he made, and to see that value in that, because Rocky already showed it to him. Dude, I'm telling you, if you don't get into feels about that a little bit, like, I don't know, maybe you are inhuman. I don't know, because
you need therapy.
Like, do you not have anyone you've ever cared about? Like, that's what that was about. Whether it's, a parent, a friend, a sibling, a mentor, child, just something, somebody that made some, because that is there. Like, I didn't think I was going to see it in that element. Watching them, I'm like, oh my God, dude, that's fucking real. And it can get you in the feels, but I was just very surprised by that as far as an issue that was happening. And then that's when right around this time is when you see that memory of why he learns. Like I said, that's how I'm choosing to see it. I don't know if it was made clear that he learned all of this already. To me, it was like he was figuring this out as he was going. He basically, he learns that he was forcefully put there against his own will. And I think that shows his character to go from waking up to what he is from where he came from. Like, he's a hero. Like, literally, he saved everybody, and he didn't think he could get there. But Ava Struett, it's got those weird.
Ava Strat, the head of the international task force behind Project.
She's like, I believe in you even if you don't, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, and it was monumentous. That twist, the turn. I'm like, holy shit! I did not think that's how that was gonna go. I thought he was gonna be like, all right, I can do it. I'm scared, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nope, I'm out. And she's like, well, I'm going to do this whether you like it or not, because she was absolutely right. And that's what people don't understand is, like,
even though for humanity purposes, it was, the wrong thing to do as far as to forcibly take the person, but it was the right thing to do for humanity in order for it to survive, because he was the right person to do it.
It's kind of like, and I'm not trying to say this is exactly the same or necessarily this is okay. It's like it's a casualty of war. It's like you kill a smaller amount to save the larger amount. And I know people don't like that idea because we as a human species do want to cherish life. But that's the reality. It's like you took him against his will and made him do something. But you also, I think, did it with a good whole idea of a judgment. I don't think she's putting him in there. She really doesn't think not only can he do it, but doesn't believe that he's letting his fears own him. Yeah. And if you remove that idea that he doesn't have a choice, he's there. So he's like, well, what else is he going to do? He's not just I think she knows him enough to know he's only made these choices in life because he was kind of put there and exiled. But he was very strong about his opinion. And so I think there's just a character that she was able to read and be like, look, I hate doing this, but I have to. And I think it's just she knew that was a good decision to do, because once it was removed, he not only he excelled, and lived and survived and was communicating. And I think that as a character development is an element to everyone, me, my brother, everyone on this planet. You can do way more than you give yourself credit for. We are our own handcuffs. We are our own evil spirits. We are our own devil and angel on the shoulders. And unfortunately, we let that devil win too many times. And it's really up here that stops us from doing anything. I truly believe this wholeheartedly. It doesn't mean people will change. I just believe they have the possibility to forever and do great things for everyone. It's just, unfortunately, we don't always follow through with that. She removed that element. She said, you don't got a fucking choice. And I think ultimately his will is just too good to not do anything. So that's why when he was there, he did excel. But it was just a very interesting element of humanity that take place and shows hard decisions are made by people that I would not want to have to make that decision. No fucking way.
No way.
I don't like making the decisions I do at work now. And you're telling me I got to make decisions like that? Like basically, she knows, because you don't find that he can still survive. You don't find that out, or he doesn't know that. Humans don't know that. The fact is, she only sees it as she's going to send this person to his death. She knows that. But once again, she knows he's the best option to save the whole universe. And I think she saw that way before that scenario.
She saw that track record
way
of him
before
figuring shit out. Like, again, even with his theory being wrong and then him changing that. Him figuring out the astrophase. Carl, help me out! He was solving stuff when all these other smart people weren't. He was doing things and figuring things out and knowing things, even though all these other people weren't. And I think it's just one of those elements, like, she could see that. She could see against all odds, he's still doing things. He still can do it. And I think that's a character thing, that some people have an ability to see that element of somebody beyond what most people can. And that is
Sometimes you see the wrong character because you want to see the right character, but I think that was a calculated risk, and that's what it was. But it was the right risk.
Yeah, and Grace was like the ultimate problem solver. Like even when we got stuck, and obviously partnering with Rocky, they were like what, the Clock Bros. So, but yeah, they had a really good balance, obviously working together because Rocky was the engineer as far as could pretty much build anything, where Grace, he was more the scientist aspect of it. Or was he the chemist or
he was the scientist. Yeah. But leading into
or molecular biologist,
leading to even more so with this character is after that, given the choice of either going home and living or saving your friend, he chose his friend, and that is like I do believe the term is altruistic, where it's like humans, I do believe, is the only species on the planet Earth that will go towards fire. Every other organism on this planet will run away from fire. And like I said, that term might be wrong, but this is the same thing. We are, as a society, supposed to understand that giving up your life for somebody or something is such a noble cause, knowing that is the end. And he didn't want to do that at first, but then he essentially knew that was the end result. If he's not going home, being selfish and doing, and understandably so. But I think you learn that these relationships are going to be way more important to you as a whole. We don't know what happens after. I know people feel they know, but the true understanding as a human race of what happens after us when we pass away is unknown. No matter what you say, I don't care. If it's a belief, it's a belief. If it's but as far as that, we don't know truly 100,000% what happens. And that's the thing is, he doesn't care. This interaction, this relationship, this I don't want to say thing, but organism, this other alien means so much to him, and it's like you didn't see him have this at all before that, and it was an amazing character development. And then of course it's even better when you see it at the end where he is on a planet and they kind of painted, oh, he's on Earth, he made it back, and then you realize no, he's on Erid, this other planet, and I was literally saying to my wife, I was like, it would have been cooler if they would have showed these other aliens too, at least a couple or something like that. And then he's doing exactly what he in a way kind of does love, is he's teaching, and he's teaching what would arguably kids of another alien species. And I just thought that was phenomenal. The other thing I thought was a phenomenal little tidbit is he starts talking to Rocky without the computer. Did you notice that?
That's at the end.
At the end. And when he's talking to the class, he's not even talking to them. He's talking because they've learned to understand English language, and he's understanding their sounds, but there's no translation. He just talks the way he does. It might be one of those things where he can't, in a way, audibly make all their sounds the way they do, and vice versa, but they can understand what they're doing. And I think that's a cool element, because I've seen people do that. I've seen some people talk to like someone in Spanish and the other person respond in English straight back, and that's how the conversation will go. And I love that. I think that's so cool, and that was just such a cool element to see some other aliens and what they look like. They were different colors and different sizes and different makes. I was very, very happy, to say the least.
You have any other points, Kev, or you want to rate this?
Well,
you want to go into the science?
I want to talk about some science, because let me tell you, and then we'll rate this, because this is a huge, obviously, sci-fi, really being science fiction, but there's a huge science element that had me super intrigued, and I did some research and looking into even outside of the movie. All right, so I want to go into some of this.
All right, I'm curious to see what you're going to throw at us over here.
This is fiction, okay? There is no such thing as an astrophage. So we're not going to die by an astrophage, anything new. From my understanding, there is no life that can exhibit in space, and this is a life form that would exhibit in space. Now, a phage is, in my background, was usually a lot of times related to viruses. And viruses in life are known to technically, at least back in my college days, of which I haven't been schooling, they may have updated things, but they weren't considered alive. But that's the weird thing is, yet they do have proponents of being life, but they can't exist on their own, and there's other things that come into play. I'm not getting into that, but so it had it was
considered like symbiotes then, in a sense?
No, they're just not alive. They're an organism, but not an organism. It's kind of like that's a weird thing. Right. I guess a symbiote would be an idea like it, but even symbiotes can exist in a sense by themselves for a little while, but they usually need a host. That's kind of what viruses are. They really need a host to replicate and do all these processes, which is why they're not technically considered alive in a sense. But in a way, that's dicey. Like I said, that's a conversation for a different day. I'd have to research that because I really don't remember some of that quite to the degree as well as I should. But some of the things with that is like even the eating and devouring of heat and light. Like I don't know, and then the explosion or propulsion of the red light, which is creating the Petrova line. Like once again, that is not really a thing. So it's a cool concept, and eventually the microbes.
So let me ask you a question, Kevin. Because we talk a lot about like story and believability. So even though it's not necessarily a real thing, was it explained to the degree enough where it could be something that's not real that was believable, I feel, in the story? And that's where I think yes, I mean, it made it seem like it was a real thing.
Yes, that's my point. And I've said this before in the past, is even if a story's not real, can it be believable? This was actually absolutely believable. Now, I wanted to see what they said, but I was like, I've never heard of anything like this. Is like I said, as far as I know, life cannot exist in the dead of space. It's just so to go from one thing to go to another would mean how are you living in space? And that's where they're like basically like the astrophage was impenetrable by anything, but it seemed like at least by light until it was broken, and then all of a sudden, and I'm like, okay. Anyways, eating light in a sense, eating energy in a sense, it was based off the idea of thermophiles, which are like extreme bacteria and whatnot, like organisms that literally live in like lava. They've found sharks literally living in boiling water in volcanic things. I'm not kidding. I've seen this stuff myself. They have video of it. There's snails that are like literally the shell looks like they are a volcano, came right out of it. At the same time, there's things that live in the absolute cold. Think about the deep ocean water. That stuff is cold. There's no light. They adapt to their surroundings. That is life in essence. We adapt and overcome evolution in a sense. So people that don't believe in evolution, they're foolish because it happens. It literally happens all the time. You could see it literally. People do with rabbits all the time. Over time, you can see patterns of colors. You can see eye color. You can see any sort of abnormalities. They didn't breed them in or out. It does happen. So that's a real thing. But this astrophage, I was like, I'm not so sure. But the idea that if you had some sort of microorganism that is essentially what they are, and then attacked and killed by the Taumiba organism, that makes there's a lot of sense that can be made there. The story is there, even though it's on a false premise. So I like the idea that they're trying to use some science premises, even though it's not real. Like that's a lot of sci-fi movies. We don't have space travel, but the idea of space travel, like at light speed, is a concept that we're aware of that can happen in theory. Time traveling, right? These are all theoretical things, even though we can't do it. But it's there. So that's why I do love and get into some of this. Now, so I was fine with that. I thought it was cool. I liked the idea of the astrophage. Now, Tau Ceti is the star. This is real. So there's actually real elements. Tau Ceti. Okay.
Yeah, it's real.
So it is real, and it is a constellation Cetus. Cetes. What a Cetus. It is a G type of star, which means it has a yellowish orange look like flame, which is actually as they call it, a cousin to our sun, because our sun is just a star. People don't think of it like that, but that's what stars are. They are just variations of that, just emitting light and energy. However, CD it's 78% as big as the sun. So it's actually a little smaller, which is why some of the light emitted and whatnot is there. But of the picture I saw, there's like 4 orbiting exoplanets, as they were calling them. And they're not in the same distance away as Earth is and Venus and Mars, but there's some similarities and patterns and whatnot. So the possibility of life is there on Tau Ceti E, which is later called Adrian in the movie. So that is real. Like, there is real elements to this. That's why I believe there is life out there. This is absolutely a thing. That's not surprising to me. Let's put it that way. So that element is totally awesome. I love real things. Here's where it gets interesting. All right. So this is for some perspective. All right. Tau Ceti E from us, Earth, is about 11.9 light years away. That is not a measurement of time. That is a measurement of distance. Okay, so for reference, how long does it take us to get to the moon, Brian? Do you know? How
no fucking clue.
Okay, I didn't think so. I didn't know either. This is actually, I hate physics. I'm very terrible at it, but I do find it interesting. It takes us about 3 days to get to the moon.
Okay.
All right. So you want to guess how long it takes us to get to Mars? To get with that idea. I know you weren't thinking you were going to be put on the spot.
Yeah, I don't know, 3 weeks.
Okay. To get to Mars is, I don't know if it's the closest planet, but it's one of the closest planets to us, right? 6 to 9 months.
Holy fuck.
Okay. So at our current mode of technology, you want to take a guess how long it would take to get to Tau Ceti?
Like a spaceship or whatever? Or
yeah, if like our current mode, if we had a ship and like, all right, we're going.
To get to Tau Ceti?
Yeah.
13 years.
22,000 to 210,000 years.
God damn.
That's current.
It's because we haven't solved freaking light speed yet.
Okay, I got more. Now, if we were to establish what is a theoretical science, which we're aware of, with fusion technology, that's been around. There's a movie called, is it Chain Reaction, with Keanu Reeves in it. It talked about cold fusion. It was really cool and interesting, and government plots and all that jazz. But fusion is a real concept out there in the world. It has not been found that I'm aware of. But with that would advance our technology. It's basically limitless energy, which is a lovely idea and concept because it would help everything, and it's supposed to be relatively clean. If it was solved, and this would make our energy purposes better, it would take us 1,000 years to get to Tau Ceti.
Jesus.
If we traveled at the speed of light or just short thereof, speed of light is very fast, and I used to know this. I don't remember. But at 99.5% of speed of light, if we were to travel that, it would take 13 years. So it is very far away, and we're not going to get there in any normal person's lifetime. You'd have to really get into some of the sci-fi aspects of like basically freezing our bodies but not aging and all that. Now, an interesting thing is, even though it would take 13 years for the trip, the traveler themselves would experience only 4 years, essentially, with aging. Relativistic time dilation. It's an Einstein aspect. Basically, due to the gravitational pull of travel, whether it's by travel or just a gravitational field, it's going to be much higher. And because of that, it actually slows down the aging process.
That's very interesting.
So with that idea or concept, if you were on the planet or the moon, you would in theory age faster because the gravitational pull's lighter on Moon, which is why you can jump so high and stuff like that. So as far as I know, artificial gravity and whatnot, with current space technology, when people are in space, they can't just stay in space. They have to come back down, because when they're in space for extended period of times, what happens is that bone density becomes an issue, and that's related to gravity, and I think the lack thereof. I don't even know if they have artificial gravity yet. Now, I could be off on that. I don't know, but we know this idea of it, and I don't know. Like I said, I could be just missing this, but that even with some of these ideas, being in space for extended period of time, your body starts degrading itself. So there are lots of things that I don't know for sure, but hearing some of these things, getting to this planet, if we ever did, we'd have to have an extreme jump in technology time, whether time travel or just travel itself, because even being as fast as light, we would be too slow, really, in lots of ways. So, and then once again, you have to try to maintain people's body, which we don't have. So the science behind that is really interesting. I know I'm getting real nerdy. I got a little bit more, I promise. The other aspect I just want to get into, Rocky's environment versus human environments, okay? So I'll make this relatively quick. The reason why it was the disparity between the two is on Rocky's environment is a very high ammonia, basically almost pure ammonia, NH3. Ours is actually, and I keep forgetting this, our environment is actually 78% nitrogen. That's actually really high. It's only 21% O2. So people think like it's huge. It's really not. We breathe in a lot of gases, and we just keep the oxygen really and filter out the other stuff. But there's also other trace elements, but it's not that high in oxygen. The atmospheric pressure, as I was kind of alluding to, it's not the gravity, but the pressure. It's kind of what affects, like, allergies and head pressure and stuff like that. 29 degrees of atmospheric pressure in Rocky's environment. We have the equivalent of 1. So it's like squeezing you. You know what I mean? It's like going to the sub depths. Like, that's why you can't just take a fish from the deep oceans and bring it up. It's like that atmospheric pressure is so much tighter around your body, kind of thing. The temperature on their planet is about 210 degrees Celsius, which is equivalent to 410 degrees Fahrenheit. So boiling by almost twofold.
Yeah, he was like, "Why is it so hot in there?" Well, I remember when he opened up to Rocky's thing or whatever.
Yeah, your skin would just basically slough off and burn off immediately. Like, it's that hot. So our average atmospheric temperature is 15 degrees, just for reference, Celsius, that is. So it's like, yeah, room temperature is about 25. So 15 is not freezing, but, it's probably going to be, 40s-ish, maybe 50s? I don't know. I don't have that off the top of my head. Their light is almost pitch black compared to us, which is why they don't have vision. It's kind of like being in the South, and why they've learned to do sound waves and whatnot. And then at last, our gravity, theirs is 2 to 2.5 Gs. Ours is 1G. So once again, the pulling down and everything, it does make a difference, which is why when the Rocky was like, hey, we're aged to like 183 years or something shit like that, like they're going to live, in theory, a longer life potentially, because gravity's going to slowly keep them from aging as far as that goes. So that's all I got on the science as far as that goes. I found this really interesting. If you're a nerd like I am in that regard, I was down to the rabbit hole. Man, this is so cool. Like, so there's a lot of elements in this movie I'm sorry if I got bored you, but I just found it so interesting when you compared the two of why things were the way we are. And essentially, when he comes out of his shell, he's cooling to the touches, which is why it looks kind of weird and whatnot. But all right, I'm sorry.
You know what we do now, Kevin?
What do we do? We rate?
We party.
Oh yes, we do. Oh, you want to go over some quotes?
That was one of the quotes.
We can go over some quotes. I got quotes.
Fist my bump.
Fist my bump. I got that one, of course.
Yeah, it was just one of the things wrapping up on that I thought was good.
I also love a couple of others.
like anytime somebody learns a different language, they usually don't say things properly because of that. And you were seeing elements of this. He's like, Rocky Hate Mark was a good one. Thumbs up, baby. Yeah, he kept going thumbs down because he would do that. They toot the scoot was a good quote that I liked a lot. Rocky said words of encouragement, and then Grace goes, "You can't just say words of encouragement." And then Rocky goes, "Words of great encouragement." I love that element. And then, of course, probably my favorite line, if not Fist My Bump, was "I put the knot in astronaut." That one had me dying. It was so good. There were lots of good lines. They were funny, but also, other ones that weren't. It was just great lines. So I'm sorry. I'm just trying to pick up the mojo again from that. I'm good as far as story and all that.
Story, plot, character development, Kev, rating. I'm going 2 thumbs.
Yeah, it was hard to beat. 2 thumbs up. The science behind it was great. The elements of the movie, the tone, it was phenomenal. I would be. I don't know how you wouldn't like certain things. Maybe I dragged on with my science talk, but man, the story did not get that feel. And I think part of it was able to jump back and forth with the flashbacks, which kind of pulled you in, even if you're like over your head kind of surface stuff. So let's go ahead and get into some of the characters, Brian. You go ahead and start it.
Ryan Gosling as Ryland Grace fucking knocked it out of the park. Grand slam choice here. I don't know if you could have found much better of an actor with this kind of a range as far as to be able to do this so well. He was a middle school science teacher, former molecular biologist on a mission kind of to save humanity here, and I feel he was a fucking home run selection.
Terrible casting. I hate it. No, it was actually great. It was phenomenal. I had a work buddy that was extremely interested in this, and the novel came out in 2021, I hear Ryan Gosling was very intrigued and wanted to do this. I don't know if he read it or whatnot, but yeah, he was very invested in this. I think he was the executive producer as well. So the writer themselves worked with the director, I believe, or no, the writer worked with the creative writing adaptation, and I think it was very similar, but omitted a few elements. But that's going to happen. But Ryan Gosling's character nailed it. I mean, there wasn't too many characters ties to this story itself, but he was absolutely phenomenal. Once again, one of the better castings. I think he has that rare element that he can play. He is a chameleon, and he's not just a background actor. He's a in your face. He's the main character, but he's the adaptable one where he can be funny, he can be serious, he can make you cry, he can be the love interest, he can be an action hero. He's one of the few good ones out there, even if he is, not everybody's favorite. I think he's a phenomenal actor.
Agreed. So what about the supporting cast, Kev? We have Eva Stratt, who is the head of the International Task Force. Obviously, you have Rocky. You also have, obviously, the pilot and engineer. You also have Carl. What were your thoughts on the supporting cast?
So for me, the only 2 main characters I wrote down, supporting cast characters I wrote down, was Eva Stratt, which was Sandra Hewler, and then Rocky was played by a puppeteer, James Ortiz. All the other characters, they were great castings and they did great jobs, but they were really minor as far as the story it goes. I thought the interesting part was Rocky. The puppeteer that played Rocky was voicing the lines during the acting, so that way Ryan Gosling could play off it. And they were actually going to voice him out later in post-production. But when they were actually running through it, some of the initial viewers actually liked his voicing of it. So they actually stuck with him as far as the even the voice acting goes. So that's a great way, and I think we harp too much on trying to get these big name actors or actresses to voice characters. I think they should do that less. I really do. Unless it's a full animated movie, but even then, I think you could still use some more voice actors, just because it's not to get other people's names out there. It's just because I think other people have great voices. Voice actors aren't are utilizing a different kind of skill set, and I don't think that people understand that. Yeah, actors can do it, and some of them are exceptional. Like Jack Black uses such voice changes and adaptations. I don't think a lot of like Leonardo DiCaprio, his voice is iconic because you know who it is, but his acting ability isn't through his voice; it's through his movements and his actual visual body work. It's not the same to me. You just only have him there because you know the voice. There's other people that have other very specific voices only because you know the voice, but it doesn't mean they voice act the same way. So I would prefer them actually to use other people personally.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad they kind of stuck with him because I know we also had like the Rocketeers, which were the puppeteers that held them. So, but yeah, I think the casting was done very well. I agree with you. I don't think they needed some well-known established actor when you're not necessarily seeing the voice actor, but again, you have to have a certain uniqueness about you, and I feel like James Ortiz kind of nailed that. And then even the supporting cast, as far as Sandra Hüller as Eva Stratt, I think she did a great job as far as, I guess, being that head figure, having to make those tough decisions. I think Carl, for a couple of the scenes, as far as with that, was also done very well. And then again, even the small scenes with the rest of the pilots and stuff like that, I thought were done very well too.
So yeah, I don't really have more comment on the characters themselves.
Yeah, there wasn't a casting I didn't like. So as far as my rating, Kevin, I'm going thumbs up.
Yeah, me too. And I think we went into more of the characters' arcs themselves, which is more part of the story. But the castings, they were great. They were spot on. You didn't need a ton main great casting. So, but moving forward to music and sound. Yeah, I think for me, it was mostly about they had a lot of like there was that room where like it was like fully developed 3D room of almost where you put all this stuff on there, and you saw some old movies and music and stuff like the movie Rocky where you got his name from and all that. But I mean, it was regular for me. I don't have much more to comment on that. It was fine.
So I think it had a unique blend of wackiness. Definitely, you had the dramatic and emotional scores, and then you had some of the spacey ambiance. Like you had "Sign of the Times" by Harry Styles. You had "Sunday Morning Coming Down," Rainbows. You had kind of like a lot of that poppy, happy-go-lucky music and stuff like that. But then you had the ambiance of like the tension and the emotion, and again, like we talked about, this was such an emotional movie. A lot of, I feel, the music and score kind of fit that well. The only song I didn't like and didn't think fit at all was the with the chorus, the girls singing like the college girls college whatever. I was like, I didn't understand that fit to it. That was the only thing I didn't like.
You mean one that that character, what's her name? Eva Stratt was singing in front of like the karaoke?
No, not the karaoke. No, that wasn't the karaoke song. There was an actual like girls choir like at one point in the actual movie singing that would like didn't fit for me.
Oh. So, yeah, I mean,
but no, that karaoke scene was awesome.
Oh, okay.
Because like they just had their like little pseudo conversation afterwards outside on like the dock or whatever, and then
kind of created a moment.
Yeah, kind of. I thought they were gonna like get together, hook up. Honestly,
it was like
they had that sexual kind of tension,
yeah,
but also that boss employee dynamic. But it was interesting to me.
I wasn't sure. I almost thought, I was like, is this sexual tension or is this something else? I don't know. It was definitely something was there, but like the sound to me, like background noise is a necessity, but you need it because if you've ever seen The Sixth Sense, not Sixth Sense. There's a different movie that actually
Star Wars.
No, it doesn't use any background noise at all, and it's very notable. And I can't remember the movie off the top of my head, but if you need it, and I just most of the time it files in, it works. Like, there's very few times where it's noteworthy to me. Like, sometimes you do have some more iconic stuff, like, you get into Phantom of the Opera, but usually those are like songs or noting things, or kill. Like, there's things that will stand out, and that's where I comment on more or less, because I feel like you're going to have something like that really makes an element. Versus if you have something that's really a bad song, or like if you have a bad theme song. So for the most part, everything falls in the mid area, and the sound effects seemed accurate. I thought, if you want anything, the one thing that stood out that I can really recall is when what looks like the underground factory explodes because of the excess astrophage doing, which is when they go to use Ryan Gosling as the scientist to go to space. There's a lack of sound, but in the background you can see the explosion. That was cool.
There was no sound at all,
and you wouldn't hear it because it's underground like that.
Crazy.
You might feel it, and maybe, but you don't necessarily hear that kind of stuff. So, like that, like I said, sometimes a lack of noise or lack of sound is interesting. But as far as being in space and all those other elements, I don't know. Everything seemed to fit. So as long as it fits and nothing is more extreme up or down, this is just good for me. I liked it in the sense that it made sense, but it's nothing jumped out.
Nothing phenomenal.
So
it's going solid thumbs up for me. So
it was good. It was mid. So moving forward to special effects, there were none. This was real life. This is absolutely everything. No visuals. I mean, you were in space. The whole thing was visual. But as I say, does it look legit? And honestly, it looked fucking legit.
Surprisingly, Kevin, actually, about the visual effects, in the interview with Hollywood Reporter, Miller mentioned no chroma keying. You know what chroma keying is, Kevin?
No fucking idea.
So chroma keying is basically when you're in front of a green screen or a blue screen.
Okay.
And they basically take that out of it to put something else behind it. So that's what chroma keying is. So none of that was actually used in the film, and the entire set was shot practically. Fraser had previously collaborated with visual effects supervisor on the Dune films. Their disdain for blue and green screen, which impacts lighting and visuals through color spill, led them to use blackouts and gray screens on the film instead. Miller had previously stated the visual effects was used to depict the spaceship from the outside, while shots of Gosling in space were shot against a black or varying color drop. So
that's maybe why I liked it so much.
Yeah, so a lot of the practical effects, NASA actually provided support for both the input of scientific experts and astronauts.
That's why it makes a lot of sense.
And Kjell Lindgren visiting Gosling during filming to share insights of human space flights. Miller noted by the end of the film, shots with Rocky were 50% visual effects, 50% puppetry, which I love the hybrid.
Style. You know how I feel.
Yep.
You got to use those puppets and then just highlight, and that's
Yep. And then Planet of Tau Ceti, to me, looked amazing. The green and red swirls and crazy-looking atmosphere looked really fucking cool. I was just like, I felt like I was in outer space. But yeah, I had no quarrels about any of this at all. It was done so well.
Phenomenal. I thought the lighting, the being in that room, getting the real feel of it. Oh my God, it was so awesome to see the spaceship. So if there was a knock, I would say, okay, when you're in space, it's like a vacuum. So what happens is, that's why if you go like this and you flick something, it is essentially going to go forever, because the energy is expelled and that energy is just moving. You're just going to keep spinning. You just keep going. It doesn't stop. There's no resistance, right? If we throw a ball, eventually it's going to come to the ground and eventually it slows down. Gravity plays a part in that, and wind resistance and whatnot. That is not in space. So the one hang-up I had, not much, but there was a hang-up, is definitely when the ships were moving in space, like the way the alien Blip A ship would move, there was never any thrusters, and it would stop on a dime. That was a little weird for me because I'm like it moved smoothly, but the way it stopped and was abrupt, it almost literally looked like a kid was holding it and just going like this, and that was it in a sense. Because from my understanding, that is not exactly realistic, because if you exert a certain amount of effort, you have to use the same amount to stop it, especially in that amount of space, let alone try to get it to go another way or not. And it was kind of mimicking the ship, which I love that scene. I just don't know that it would actually work like that functionally in actual space.
Yeah, and I don't definitely disagree with you there, Kev. The ship was kind of hard to see, though. It was like, if I remember, it was like very black and like copper. So
yeah, it looked like copper piping throughout the whole thing.
Even if it was that, like, you couldn't really, even if there was thrusters and all that, it was kind of hard to see. So whether they were hidden or not, that's another thing, maybe for their survival. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. That wasn't seen, obviously, and again, we're being nitpicky, but again,
but I did love how it looked, because once again, there was no light, because they don't use light. So the absence of that and how it looked on the inside, it was almost like Braille was the whole ship, because that's basically what they're basically blind. So the fact that they're, there was like these Braille images and all that stuff, that's how they would know what to see, and the bumps and the grooves. So phenomenal. I thought was amazing. There's real foresight into how to create this thing to reflect it, and it made sense, and I love that about it, and I thought that was phenomenal, and how they showed it when he's like, let me just still see your ship. I thought that was really, really cool, and I love that. So even on the planet, like, I don't think, I shouldn't say I don't think, I don't know if people realize this, but when they're on Erid and there's that giant light there, and he's inside this bubble. He's basically in like a little mini greenhouse. They don't have light on the planet because the atmosphere, nitrogen. Like that bubble was made for him, and only him. And so the fact that they're living that way was super cool and interesting. But there's water there. I don't know if that would be the case or not, even though they did it, because if it is almost all high ammonium, I don't know how much oxygen they would have to have a water. Right? So I don't know how that would work. I mean, in theory, you could have still water. If there is oxygen there, you could make water and condense it and all that jazz. But that, once again, not trying to get too nerdy about this. But anyways, the visuals were still amazing, and I absolutely loved it. So we can go ahead and vote on this bad boy.
Oh, yeah, I'm going thumbs up.
Super high in regard. So, rewatchability and enjoyment in that regard, and emotional connection, I'm going to say, yeah, I loved it. I think this is a movie you could watch lots of times. I think it's something to enjoy. I watched it with my older kids. It's family friendly.
They watched it with you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I think, it was, honestly, it was probably one of the best movies I've seen in at least a decade. Like, literally, I thought it was that phenomenal. The story, the way it was, visuals, just everything about it. I don't really have more to say at this point as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong with a lot of the concessions, because I certainly agree with you, too. Rotten Tomatoes, 94% reviews are positive with an average of 8.2 out of 10. Website's consensus, a visually dazzling space odyssey that's carried along effortlessly.
There you go.
God, by the gravitational pull of Ryan Gosling at his most winning. Project Hail Mary is a near miraculous fusion of smarts and heart. The film received praise for Lord and Miller's direction, Gosling's performance, and the character of Rocky, as well as the humor, themes, and visuals. G. Allen Johnson of San Francisco Chronicle deemed it a masterpiece of family popcorn movie with eye-popping handcrafted production design and outstanding creature design and puppetry work. Rainey Myers of the Mercury News gave a firm 3.5 out of 4 rating. While you can't help but marvel at the visuals and applaud the commitment of Gosling's endearing performance, what also makes Project Hail Mary so gosh darn lovable is it imbues us with a childlike wonder from scenes that pay homage to such classics as E.T., Flight of the Navigator, and yes, Rocky, which I thought that was said very well, Kevin.
Yeah, I it's hard, as I may have said back in one of the previous podcasts. It's sometimes not as entertaining, or it's hard to comment when stuff is just so good face value. Like this was good. They're telling it exactly the way we're seeing it. It was a good film. It was just no. I lied. It's a great film. It really is. It can get into so many bits. I mean, is it perfect? No, but what is? The point is, if you were disappointed watching this movie, I'd like to have a real conversation to know why. Honestly. And not that I would be mad at you, but I'd be like, what was so appalling that you did not like this movie? Because I think there's literally a little bit of something for everyone here. And if you really don't like the movie, the only you maybe don't think it's great, but not liking it's different than, yeah, it's fine, or okay, like I would like to know who would not like a movie like this, because I'm struggling to see what was so bad that you're like, I hate it, 0 stars, it's terrible. What is going through your mind? I can't comprehend, because I thought it was a great movie.
No, I agree. And Nicholas Barber of BBC named one of the best films of 2026. Well, I definitely agree. Writing, Project Hail Mary is an unusual science fiction blockbuster in that it's mostly about people using their brains to solve problems. Does that approach sound a bit dry and academic? If so, rest assured that Project Hail Mary is touching and inspiring and surprisingly fun. It's directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who take a complicated, potentially bleak narrative and make it as fast-paced and cheerful as their animated hit, The Lego Movie. Meanwhile, Ryan Gosling brings all of his goofball charm to the role of an amnesiac biologist who is trying to save the world.
I think it reiterates what we said earlier about the storytelling. If they don't tell this story the way they do, I don't think it has the effect, meaning it was utmost importance to have the flashbacks in there, because it broke up any monotony one way or the other. If it got too sciencey and all that jazz, you might lose some people, but then you went into the flashback for the people that aren't into science. Or like by going into flashbacks and then going back to the science stuff, you get intrigued. Some maybe the nerds such as myself that are like, yeah, I want to know more about what's going on here in space. But I also love the backstory. So I think it was a way that they created, and of course how the past story leads into the present, but also is kind of solving itself at the end, where it's like he's the same person yet almost had two different character arcs. One being the past, in which how he essentially didn't want to go to space, and I don't want to say it was a failure, but was like so pessimistic, to then show where he started and became anew. I think that's how they achieved it. How else would they have done it?
Yeah, and the human connection and the pacing and storytelling were just great. It's a great movie, so I'm ready to rate it, Kevin, unless you have any other thoughts.
Are people really surprised at this point of how we feel? I mean, nope. This was a phenomenal movie.
Thumbs up.
Like I said, in reality, if you are listening to this and you hated this, please personally reach out to me and tell me Project Hail Mary blew ass or whatever it is. I want to know, because I want to know what it was that somebody absolutely hated about this movie, because I'm struggling. Not, like I said, Not saying everything's perfect, but I'm struggling to know what you would have hated because this is one of the best movies I've seen in 20 years, if not longer. Like, I think it's that good of a movie. I really do. So please let me know if there's. I'm not saying that there's a better one, but hey, you got a better one that's in the last 20 years, let me know too, and I may agree with you, but this is definitely one of the top 5, I'd say, in the last 20 years I've seen.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at IMDb. Someone rated this a 5. The most overrated sci-fi film in years. I generally don't understand the hype around Project Hail Mary.
See, but that's not saying it's bad. They just saying they didn't get the hype. But is it overrated? Does that make it bad? Or does it just not make it as great as you think it is? There's two different things happening. I said made it bad. Is it bad? That's what I want to know. Like, I can understand if you think it's overhyped, but I still think it was really good. But not just sci-fi aspect. I'm talking about all the elements that we talked about. So I'd be very intrigued to hear if somebody has more to say, like, hey, what is it that was just so bad about it? Well, I thought the storyline was slow, or I thought this was that. Okay, that's fair. But was it bad? I want to know bad. If somebody has something, let me know. I'm all ears. So outside of that, Brian, I ain't got much more to say.
Yeah, I mean, overall rating, Kev?
The emotional attachment and rewatchability is almost redundant with this at this point. But yeah, I'm going thumbs up.
Thumbs up, 100%. So, any final thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, science, man. Fuck yeah. Love it.
No, I can definitely see more people wanting to learn or get into science because of movies like this, though, just because it is so intriguing, on the science aspect of things. Like, I don't know, like, if you can recall, even in your childhood, which made you gravitate towards science, if there was something, not necessarily a movie, but was, did you always know you wanted to get into science, or was there something that kind of impacted you to kind of lean in that direction?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I think for everyone's different. I think some people just have a natural knack of something and they just find themselves flowing to it. I think my natural interest in science always dealt around animals and intrigued by how they work and what they do. I don't know if you remember, this is going back to elementary school, but I was fascinated and always have been fascinated by snakes. And I used to actually, take home the library books as you could. I didn't steal them. All right, I rented these library books, and I'd take them home of all these different, usually venomous snakes, and I would write out the whole book by hand.
I did not know that.
I would write out the whole book by hand, and even like every word for word, and then I would try to draw a picture of the cover, which is usually like a king cobra, which was like one of my favorite. There's coral snakes, there was vipers, there was rattlesnakes, cottonmouths, and I used to do that as a kid, and I remember doing it, and I would just word for word, I'd write the whole thing out, and because I wanted to keep it at home for me, because I wanted to look at it again. Now I was like 4th or 5th grade, so like 9-ish, so it was nothing that ever like really stuck with me, but it was one of those things I was always just intrigued in like how they worked and what they were about, and I don't know why, but now that led me into other areas of science, and not currently what I'm in now, but it definitely led me to other areas of science, and you learn cool things, and it's I think I have a brain that likes to learn how things work and why we do things. Not everybody has that brain. Like even now when I try to build something, like try to add to my child's wooden swing set by building more platforms and stuff like that. I don't have a natural inclination of know how all this carpentry works, but I can kind of figure things out. That's the problem solving ability that I try to feed and get interested in and like doing. But ultimately, I think everyone's just different, and I think for me, it's just animals were that spur. But at the same time, think about your science movie, Star Wars, right? Like what boy kid have I ever known that didn't like lasers or guns or swords to do something with? I can't think of a lot. That doesn't mean there aren't, but I can't think of any. What kid doesn't like the idea of space and going somewhere kind of cool or crazy nobody's been to? When I got a little older, the idea of the predator or the alien species, like just hunting and killing things. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little more sadistic at times. Killer clowns from outer space. Just the idea of other life forms is cool. So if you look at microorganisms, they almost look like other life forms. They literally don't know how fungus is a thing. Like they're not related to like anything in this world. I have a buddy at work that says fish aren't real. That's a different story. He's like, they don't exist.
Do you still have the written out books of the snakes, guys?
No, I don't. So fun thing is, I not related to this, but I used to because of the drawing thing. I used to.
I was hoping you had a spiral, somewhere.
No, I'm pretty sure I don't, but I do still have drawings from when I was like in this would have been probably about 5th, 6th grade. And I was really into Mortal Kombat, and I like to freehand copy the pictures. I don't know if you remember that even. So I draw like this Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and then I made like this own little universe of like these like weird alien characters, but they were all dressed in like the same ninja outfit, and it was so bad. And I still have that from like 30-something years ago. It was terrible. But I kept it. I'm like, why not? So
I drew a Shao Kahn once. It was pretty dope.
Yeah, I wish I had those. Like they weren't obviously identical, but I even that's when I would practice even the shading and learned about that, because if you did it without the shading, you're like, this looks a little weird, and then you realize, oh yeah, the black makes a big difference.
That's a movie we should check out, is the new Mortal Kombat movies.
I don't hate it, but yeah, it's also supposed to be not the first installment. I think it's supposed to be actually, I think, a sequel to the most recent one done a few years ago. Yeah. So, anyways, we're dragging ass here at this point, but thank you if you're listening this far. We do appreciate it. Once again, this movie's great recommendation. We got others we do and don't like, but you can listen for those on our releases. We come out on Tuesdays on the Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. Thursdays we're out on YouTube, so if you for some reason want to enjoy our visuals here, you got these ugly mugs to look at, but yeah, my beard is sticking out. But yeah, that's all I got for you. I do appreciate, and Brian does as well, appreciate you guys listening to us and humoring us or not, because he's not funny, but I am. But
I have my moments, but you just have more of them.
Yeah, that's because I just laugh at my own jokes. But that's all right. I'm the funniest person I know. So anyways.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace out.